Hi, this is my review of the Monster Manual. This Monster Manual is one of the 3 core books you need to play Dungeons & Dragons 3.0. And to be fair, well, I'm going to say some pretty negative things about this book, but to be fair, it's kind of like the pioneer or the explorer of uncharted D20 territory. Other books such as the Monster Manual 3.5 and Paizo's Bestiary are much better, but as I was telling you, this book is what started all those other books. Used this book as a platform to improve things, so you have to be a bit lenient or a bit merciful when criticizing this book. Well, let's talk about the quality of the physical quality of the book. It's actually pretty sturdy, pretty tough. I've been using it a lot, and as you can see, it's in pretty good shape, and the quality of the paper is great. The structure is somewhat decent. The organization could have been better, but we'll get into that in a bit. The book has some pretty awesome illustrations. Here you have the classic beholder. You also have some illustrations like the gibbering mouther. You have the infamous Tarask, or Tarask. I never did get how you pronounce that. I actually don't like that illustration too much. I prefer the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual illustration. It looks pretty, I don't know, like demonic and fearsome in that book. You also have some dragons. Here's a white dragon. And there are a lot of cool illustrations throughout the entire book. Well, let's get started. Well, the book has a good variety of monsters to use in your game. You have aberrations, undead, elementals, giants, magical beasts, outsiders, different types of slime and ooze, vermin, etc. You have a lot of good things, of a wide and flexible variety for any type of adventure. This is the first negative thing I'm going to say about the book. It could have used a good section telling you how to create monsters. You do get a list of feats and different monster special attacks and special defenses, qualities, abilities, etc., etc. But you never get a step-by-step guide on how to create a monster, and that would have been great because back then D&D 3.0 just came out, and not many players were accustomed or with enough confidence to create their own monsters. So a step-by-step guide on how to create monsters would have been nice. There are also some rules on how to advance monsters, on how to make them stronger, but in my opinion, it's not that well thought out. Sometimes it does work, but sometimes you end up with a pretty underpowered or even overpowered monster just by modifying the hit die and adding some feats and skill points, saving throws, etc. And well, the monsters aren't that well organized. What I mean is that their stat blocks have information all over the place. Compared to Paizo's Pathfinder Bestiary, in that book you get a nice stat block with all the information you need for combat in one place, all the information you need for skill checks in some other place, but here it's all like spread out in a very weird way, and you're going to have to be moving your eyes up and down a lot, trying to find the important or pertinent information for a specific encounter. And again, in Pathfinder Bestiary, you had this set of icons easily identifying each monster as, I don't know, vermin or magical beast, undead, etc. But here it's a bit hard to find exactly what type of subtypes and just general species each monster belongs to. It's not that hard. After a while you get used to finding, oh, this one is a magical beast, oh, this one's an aberration, but it could have been a lot better. And this book contains a number of appendices. One contains information for normal animals, and that's normal in a pretty loose sense. What I mean is that you get rules for wolves and bears and other types of animals that don't have anything to do with magic and such, but there are some examples of how to make those animals larger or even, well, just larger than they are normally are. You also get another appendix. It has to do with vermin, and vermin are also like the normal versions, but they still feel pretty supernatural. That is, you get giant spiders and just some huge scorpions, and I think there were some colossal beasts here as well. Monstrous and colossal, yes. And the third appendix has to do with templates, and I really didn't like this appendix at all. You get all sorts of templates to modify different creatures. For example, you can turn a normal creature into a celestial creature, or a fiendish creature, half celestial creature, maybe a vampire creature, or maybe you want to turn it into a werewolf. And here is where different designers start getting all crazy of using these templates in all sorts of ridiculous ways. Because, for example, there is one monster that is not, it doesn't come in this book, but it's called the Tall Mouther, if I remember correctly. And I remember there was this adventure where a Tall Mouther was also a vampire, so you have a vampire Tall Mouther, and that's just ridiculous because the Tall Mouther is kind of like a gorilla head with a lot of arms, and now that thing is also a vampire. It just looks really ridiculous. How did that happen? Did the vampire, I don't know, decide to drain all the blood out of the Tall Mouther, or maybe turn the Tall Mouther into a vampire by performing touch attacks? Or was it because of the site or the place the Tall Mouther was in that it somehow degenerated into a vampire? But it's just really silly. The concept of a vampire starts losing a lot of its mystery and scariness when it's applied to some kind of monster in that way. They should have modified the vampire template with something like it only applies to humanoids or something like that. There are also some templates that were also abused in such a way, like the ghost template. You could basically turn any type of creature into a ghost, but then you had dragon ghosts and maybe titan ghosts, and that's just really ridiculous, because a ghost it's very scary when it's from your same size and species. For example, the ghost of an old woman approaching you with a chilly touch, that's pretty freaky. But then you have like the ghost of a dragon, and that's not scary at all. Sure, the ghost of a dragon could wipe the entire party out, but it's not that scary, and you got all those crazy combinations. And as I mentioned in my previous video, the Player's Handbook review, I said that there were also like dragon rangers, and I don't know, I kept thinking about a dragon dressed as Robin Hood and with a tiny bow flying around shooting arrows, and that's just really ridiculous in my opinion. And there were also some mistakes in this book. I believe there were some printing errors in this first printing, but they were not that bad, but still they were kind of a bit annoying, but just a bit. And I also think that this book could have used a lot more higher level creatures. You had a lot of creatures for encounters that have to do with level 10 and below, but for example, if you had a lot of player characters that suddenly reached level 20 or 18, you had very few monsters that could challenge them. You had like the Tarask and maybe the Titan and the Baylor and Nightcrawler, but you basically had to advance the other creatures so they could present an adequate challenge to your players. And so overall, what do I think about this book? Well, as compared to recent manuals and bestiaries, really inferior, but I still use it every now and then with my Pathfinder game, because there are a lot of Dungeons and Dragons specific monsters that weren't published in the Pathfinder Bestiary, and they are still here, but I did have to modify them to the new rules. And overall it's just decent. It's a decent bestiary. If you can just tolerate all those errors that I mentioned, or those weaknesses, you can still find some good use for it. But if not, you should definitely stick to the Monster Manual 3.5 and Pathfinder Bestiary. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.